So you're probably, I don't know if you guys can hear the beeping. It's probably going to be beeping a little bit while people continue to join, but when I start. Again, we're going to do some polling questions because I like it to make it a little bit more interactive to get some feedback and understand where everybody is coming from. So let's begin and talk about the making of a digital business and the API economy that really supports it. And I like to start off with a story. Okay. So we all know Uber, right? Everybody's using Uber. It's the ultimate story of disruption. And when everybody thinks of who Uber disrupted with a few good APIs and a good app, who they really disrupted, it was the taxi companies, right? Everybody thinks of that. Okay, they disrupted the taxi companies. But they've also disrupted automobile rentals. I realized last October, wow, I haven't rented a car in a long time. I don't even think about renting a car anymore. If I'm going to a major city, I just Uber it wherever I go. And it wasn't even a conscious decision I made that I'm not going to rent cars anymore. It just turned out that way, that I just stopped renting cars because wherever I was going, Uber was available. And it's easy, and I can jump in a car, and I don't have to worry about rental car returns, filling up with gas. And so it was an unconscious decision to just stop renting cars. Well, this also has a cascading effect on the automobile industry. So as you can see, Uber, this simple idea with APIs and an app built, a mobile app around those APIs to build a platform that people can make money on, it's been majorly disrupted. Another area it's disrupting, they're going into deliveries, right? So you can you need something delivered across town, you can Uber delivery it. One thing, one place where Uber is disrupting and you wouldn't even think about, DUI attorneys. I've got a friend that has a friend that's a DUI attorney, and he said, you know what, man, Uber is affecting my business. Because of this, I mean, it's great, and you can see in the news clippings all the time that, Uber has dropped DUI offenses from, or even deaths from 10% to 20%, right? So that's a great disruption there, if you ask me. So when you think about digital disruption, what a few APIs in a mobile app can do for you, you could be disrupted by a business you didn't even think could disrupt you. That's a completely adjacent or unrelated category. And we can see this with Uber, right? Just take a look around of how Uber has changed our whole economy. So Gartner predicts that by 2017, 20% of all market leaders will lose their number one position to a company founded after the year 2000 because of a lack of a digital business advantage. Okay, so I'm going to quiz you here on a couple of things here. First, I want to understand a little bit about who's actually attending on the call. So this is going to be polling question number 1. Hugh, if you could cue that up for me. Okay, the question is, what is your industry? If you could just select what your industry is and submit that polling question, that would be great. Hugh, do you know if I can submit a couple of polling questions at the same time, or do we have to wait for them all to return?
It's one at a time, but we can close the polling, pretty quickly if people answer quickly.
Okay. I'm gonna put other. Here. Okay, I submitted my polling question because I got asked. Okay, we'll give that a second, and then we'll ask the other polling question. I won't do two at a time on a slide. So let's go to so what is a digital business? All right. We all go to conferences. We all read the articles and stuff that says having an e-commerce strategy is a digital business. Having a mobile strategy means you're a digital business. Having a cloud strategy, having this cloud capabilities are going to make you a digital business. Having an IoT strategy makes you a digital business. I'm going to say these are aspects of a digital business, but doesn't necessarily make you a digital business. So Hugh, can you cue up the second question, please? I just want to find out how many people on the call here are work for a company that was established before the year 2000. So this is going to be a quick question, so just quickly answer that one for me, and we'll continue on. And then after that question, I'm going to queue up, Hugh, if you could just wait a few minutes after that question is done. I want to queue up the next question, which pertains to this slide. Which strategies have you implemented? Do you have an e-commerce strategy, a mobile strategy, a cloud strategy, an IoT strategy? Which one which ones have you implemented in your organization today? And we'll find out, and we'll be able to display the results later. So, as I was saying, those 4 strategies are technical strategies. They're aspects to a digital business. But what a digital business really is the ability to network at scale, right? The key things that these disruptive businesses are building today, these disruptive digital businesses are building today, they're establishing themselves as a platform where they're able to create an ecosystem of partners, customers, and suppliers, and building a big community around that, right? And being able to do this at scale, right? Being able to do this in an almost hands-off fashion, being able to onboard new partners, onboard new customers, and having that community. I mean, if you think about Uber, it's a platform. It's a platform for independent people to come and make money, right? And so by having this platform idea, having the ability to easily work, have the ability to easily onboard and work with these customers. If you think about, what eBay does, and Concur is a great example. They provide the ultimate travel experience. But the reason why they do that is because they establish themselves as a platform where other things, other travel expenses like capabilities like CIBT and Uber and other people can log in and provide their data so that Concur can be the ultimate travel experience, to become a platform so you can easily onboard. So being a digital business is really about thinking about it, about being being able to network at scale. And I think the most important thing in order to do this is about making a conscious business decision to become a digital business, building a business strategy, and then adding the technical strategies to enable it. So without the business decision to become a digital business, to be able to come saying, hey, we need to be a platform or something, we need to be able to network at scale, we need to be able to do this, the other strategies are just technical strategies and don't necessarily mean that you're a digital business. So really get down to the conscious business decision why you're becoming a digital business. Here's an example of that, and it's an example that you're thinking, it's an interesting example. Banks are trying to establish themselves as a platform as well, right? Banks are stepping it up and leveraging their technical assets. Some of the banks are getting into the business of online authentication services, just like you would from, so we got some results here, just like you would from Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. But what's the bank's value? Well, the bank's value to do this, more and more we are offering up our personal information, and we're logging into different cloud services and leveraging those. And today we're leveraging, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, our social networks, as our authentication, our trusted authentication. The things that banks offer us is that they're going to offer the trusted, secure authentication from a well-known establishment whose whole business model has been around protecting your assets, not just a social playground. So think about that. The next time you want to log into a service that might manage some of your finances, if you could log in with your bank's authentication service, right, and use that a similar way that you would Twitter or Facebook, it would give you a stronger foundation, a stronger sense that, logging in and sharing information here, I'm secure because I know my bank is a trusted, secure authentication source. So why would banks even think about offering and being a platform for this? Because this would create stickiness with their customers. if their customers use them as their trusted authentication source for all of their different services, this would provide a stickiness and a customer loyalty for. So that's just one example of some of the things in finance, how banks are looking at this market and trying to offer services to really keep and grow their customer base. Okay, so the whole digitization of the world has shifted the power to the consumer. Consumers expect personalized products and experiences and access anytime, anywhere. You know, and the consumer I'm talking about can be anything. It could be internal to your company, like your employees. It could be your partners, or it could really be that true external, you know, citizen, you know, that you're trying to attract and maintain. But what is a personalized digital experience? Well, it comes with personalization. We got to define that, right? Personalization is really about communicating the smartest thing at any moment in time consistently across all different channels. You know, the industry is calling personalization different things. They might call it cognitive computing or insights, but really it is truly about communicating the smartest thing, getting that smartest piece of information. For in the case of Uber, it's giving the driver knowledge of where their potential their potential patrons are. For the patron that is requesting an Uber, it's giving them knowledge about how long and where their car actually is. It's that personalized experience relevant to them across all these different channels. If we think about what personalization really is, it's really about understanding three different things. There's three different drivers, right? The first driver is the context, which is the what, where, when, and how. And in this example, in the picture, you see a retail, but this could be a physician's office, and the person in this example is the who and the why. In this example I'm showing on screen, the person is you know, a patron of the store, right? The who and the why. And then finally you have the learning, you know, testing what learns and what works, and then optimizing experiences, analyzing that data, and then basically feeding that back into the system so that you can always deliver the most personalized information to the person that you're trying to talk to. Communicate the smartest thing. An excellent example of this, and I like to use this large farming equipment. Farming equipment is amazing, and it's something that you would think is not a digital business, but is really a very, very digitized business. It's not just about the machinery anymore. The machinery that is equipped with thousands of different sensors. The information from these sensors are combined with it's loaded up into the cloud, combined with historical data and real-time data regarding weather and soil conditions and crop features and many other things. It allows the farmer to make a very personalized plan mapped out to how they should plant their fields, from what type of seeds they should use, the depth that they should plant, to the amount of fertilizer. Everything that you could possibly think of is personalized to that particular person and patch of land, right? This is the essence of what a digital business becomes. And this information, the farm equipment company allows partners and other constituents log in and build services and capabilities on top of their platform. So again, the farm equipment company is establishing themselves as a platform for others for them to, you know, ultimate goal is for them to make money and grow their business, but in essence, helping their customers and helping their business partners at the same time, establishing a platform. Okay, so what gives you the power to network at scale and personalize? Well, this whole webinar is about digital business, and what drives a digital business are APIs. APIs stem from internal inside your organization, feed your mobile initiatives out to partners, and then really that true outside innovation, you know, with the extended ecosystem of developers out there. But in essence, you cannot have an e-commerce, a mobile, an IoT, or a cloud strategy without APIs and an API strategy. APIs drive the digital business. So how do you establish an API strategy? What does it require to establish an API strategy? Hugh, I want to queue up another question here, if you could do that. The next question I want you to queue up is, do you have an API strategy? Yes or no? Simple thing. I want to understand everybody on here that has an API strategy. All right. Okay, so the first part of defining an API strategy or digital strategy is knowing who the digital stakeholders are in your enterprise. This is important. These are just some basic roles, example roles. Your names might not be the same, but people need to play these roles. And in your organization, one person might play this role and all of these roles, and you might have a single person for each one of these roles. But you need to have, people in these segments. You need to have the executive sponsor, right? As I was saying before, this is a business decision. If you are really going to change to become a digital business, you need that business sponsorship, that business drive. You might have a chief technical officer, a chief innovation officer, an executive business sponsor. You need to have your chief security officer and information officers in there too. So you need some form of executive sponsorship. The next thing you need is your API team, right? And this team, usually from my experience, I talk a lot to the API team. This stems typically from if you're a traditional large enterprise with your SOA and you had a SOA initiative, a lot of these folks from the API team come from that type of background, right, or at least start it. So you have the API product manager. They own the whole notion of the API as a product, how it fits into the business, how to drive it forward, gather requirements, and so forth. You have the enterprise architect, API architect that knows how to architect the solution around the API. You have the API developer. You have the operations lead, and you're going to have security, architects. But I didn't complete all the roles, but just examples of the roles and how you'd be organized. Now, in most organizations where the middle team is easy to get, right? Like I said, I talk to that middle team, the API team, quite often. The teams that are more difficult to get is the executive sponsor and the go-to-market teams, okay? The go-to-market team is so important, no matter if you're having an API strategy that's internal or external. You need to have somebody that's a developer advocate or acts as a developer advocate. They know the technical things very well, but they also know how to communicate and can work and drive adoption and drive your strategy. You have a digital marketing officer. This person is the one that is going to be defining the messages. I mean, this is really important when you're going out to partners or externals. And, the developer advocate internally can kind of play the role of the digital marketing in some aspects too, but the product manager kind of does that as well. But you need to be thinking about it. And most importantly, you need a digital salesperson. A digital salesperson, when you're going out externally to partners, or like true external application developers, is very, very important, okay? Again, this line, this go-to-market team tends to be forgotten if the initiative is driven by the technical team. So you need somebody to play across all these roles or understand how all these roles are important, and you need to think about this. So I'm going to take another poll question here. Did your organization change to support your API strategy? All right. And Hugh will put that up. Sorry, playing with the polling thing. All right, so I will continue on to the next topic here. All right, so you have your team in place. Do you understand the API value chain? That's That's really the crux of it, right? The API manager has to understand what the value of that asset is to the business. Why would building this API be important? What aspect does it fulfill? Okay, what's the importance? The next thing the API product manager needs to understand is what is the value to the asset, value of the asset to the app developer. This is extremely important if you're going external to partners or to app developer, external app developers. Excuse me. Okay, because it helps. I mean, you got to know the value of it, and I'll explain it a little bit later. But if you don't know the value of it, how are you going to attract them to build anything with your APIs? How are you going to attract them to build apps? And this is, in essence, works for internal development as well. Why build an API if you don't know if any of your developers or people in your organization or cross organizations are going to use it? So what is the value? Finally, you must understand the value of the end user receives when they use the apps and use the solutions built with this API. Hold on one second. I've got a terrible cold. So we're going to talk a little bit more on this a little bit later, but you really need to be thinking about, in this value chain when you're putting your API strategy in place, okay? What is the value? What is going to drive the app developer or partner to use your API, and what is going to drive the end user for using those apps, and what value it brings them? That'll tell you if you're going to be successful and how you need to market and so forth. Okay, so to begin with, right? You understand the value of the API. You think you're going to be able to. You've got your team together on what is going to be your goal and objectives for your digital strategy, for your API strategy. You need to have this, right? You need to be able to define this very well, especially if it would be great if your chief digital officer or your executive business sponsor can define this and champion this through your organization. Is this to, so define a goal, right? Narrow the goal down. Is this to increase customer satisfaction, increase customer stickiness, drive faster delivery of services, faster integration with partners? Set a goal, set some objectives, know what they are, okay? The next thing you need to do is treat this API as a product. Again, no matter where it's going, if it's internal or if it's going external. You're going to need to be able to, define a business case. What's the business model for this? What's going to be the sales execution? I said establish a team. What's the market analysis? Are you going to have communication plans, technical plans, platforms? It's not enough to have an API and say, okay, we have an API. Even for internal APIs, you need to know why, you need to know how, and you need to know for who. Okay, you need to be able to articulate this. This doesn't have to be an extensive piece of work. Just write it down. Okay, so what do we need to do? Excuse me again. We need to establish target developers. Okay, so for your API, who is your target developer audience? Okay, are they going to be internal developers? Are they going to be partner developers? Are they going to be external developers? Very important. Okay, figure that out. All right. Know your market segment. So once you've figured out who you're going after, which external partner or internal, you need to understand what drives them, what's the business size do they work for, where are they located, what languages do they like to code in, what do they look like. So market segment down your group, because if you go, your partners, big difference, right, between partners that like to deal with SOAP service and partners that like to deal with REST services and so forth. So know your market, know who you're targeting so that you can build your API accordingly. Okay? The next thing is going to be choose the business asset to expose as an API. Okay, what assets are you going to choose the business asset that will support your goal and your objectives, and then think about what applications do you envision being created with this API. How will exposure of this asset affect your business? Is it going to cannibalize your business? Is it going to grow your business? Is it going to open you up to risks? Are you going to be okay with those risks? So what is, think about the business asset that you're trying to expose and what it really means to your organization. Where are you going to get these business assets from? Okay, well, they can be sourced from existing business processes or applications. They can be sourced from your SOA services. They can be sourced from your cloud services. They can be sourced from databases, mainframes, and so forth. So here I'm going to actually ask a couple of different questions here. The first question I'm going to ask is our API target. What is your existing API target going to be? Is it going to be internal, external, or partner developers? All right. Once you've answered that, then I want to ask a question on sourcing your APIs from. If you're sourcing your APIs from where are you sourcing it from? So are you using one of your existing assets, or are you are you going to be creating net new APIs with new backends? How are you building? Where are you sourcing your APIs from that you're building and exposing to people, your constituents? My advice to you, if you're exposing existing information systems, is don't expose the complexity of your existing information system, where you expose your resource model to be the APIs, and then which are your APIs, and then your clients consume. So this is the model. Don't expose your existing information system model to your customers, especially if it's legacy and not built in the modern technology, and that's what you're going after. All right. So once you have established your APIs, and you have your APIs from, and you're working on your business model, especially when you're going out free to your out to partners or to external customers, you need to think about the business model. Now, people are sitting there talking about monetizing the APIs. You're not really monetizing the APIs. You're monetizing the services that the APIs expose, okay? So it's interesting that people are like, oh, we need to monetize your APIs. You're monetizing the services that your APIs are exposing, okay? So there's three basic general models here, and they can break up and have all sorts of interesting models underneath. And you need to understand how these models play with what the value of your service is to your app developer and to your customer. So you have some of your APIs might be free. You might use the free and indirect model. The reason why they might be free is because they have low value. It's a low-value asset to the developer. They're not going to pay for it, right? Or they might be used in content acquisition. So, for example, eBay has their API for content acquisition because they need to make sure their product catalog stays up to date. And so having these APIs allow for their their partners to easily upload and manage their catalog, right? So used in content acquisition. Concur can be considered content acquisition too, in a way. Can be used in content syndication, like NPR, getting information out there in order to drive hits to their website where they have ad revenue. So you want to do content syndication to get ad revenue. To build community, you might have an API that's technically free, but in order to use it, you need to go up to the next level of service. Salesforce is an excellent example of that. They use it as a mechanism to get people up to the next level of service offering on their service. Okay, so there's different models underneath why things might be free, and so you need to think about that. The developer pays, that's an interesting one. This has to be a very high-value asset to the developer, right? And there's different models, or not just to the developer, but I would say to the business, who's ever consuming your asset, right, be it a partner or consumption. So you might have pay-as-you-go, you might have subscriptions, you might have transaction fees. There's all sorts of interesting models that are from the SaaS world of how you pay and go with things. The developer gets paid. This is a great model. This is really where the developer, where you start to building yourself as a platform to help other people build their business while you're building your business at the same time. So you can provide incentives for developers to use your APIs. There's affiliate programs, revenue sharing programs, reoccurring revenue programs. Walgreens is a really fun example where if you take their API that prints photos, you get a share of the revenue from those printing those photos. Really neat model. So there's a lot of different interesting models. Now you might need a couple of different pricing models for your APIs, right? And not all, I just want to caveat, while we're spending a lot of time on pricing and business models, there's more than this for, you don't have to expose an API out externally to have a digital strategy or a digital business, right? These are just examples for when you do expose out. So when you do, you might have a couple different pricing offerings for your services, depending on what's your target market area. Maybe you're doing 2 different market segments, and each have different buying patterns and different needs, and you want to service both of them. And so that's why you'd possibly have 2 different pricing options. Okay, so this is a little chart that I made to help me understand what the value of an asset is and what, kind of give you visually, is this something I can charge for? Is this something I have to give away for free? Is this something I can do upscale? So you basically put down what you think the value of the asset that you're exposing, the data that you're exposing is to each one of these constituents, and then you can make a judgment on what the business model is. All right, let me see. So I'd like to do a polling question here. If you are exposing your APIs externally or to partners, what business model are you using, just in generally? So if we could put that polling question up there, if it's free, if it's indirect, if the developer pays, or the developer gets paid, that would be great. Or you're not going external, you're going internal. Okay, so if you could put that polling question up. All right. So you've got your business model established. Again, you're going to need a marketing plan. You're going to need a marketing plan if it's internal, any one of those target audiences. You need to know what your developers are, who you're targeting, what channels you should be speaking to, what type of messages will resonate, what type of campaigns you will need. Will hackathons increase adoption or provide benefits? Do you need to hire outside marketing teams to help your research? How are you going to be marketing and getting the word out that this API exists in each one of your different target market areas? All right. If you're going out externally, you're gonna have to have a sales plan, right? An API sales plan. Without a proper sales plan, you will fail, right? So think about building out your sales plan for your service and your APIs, right? What value do you need? Tutorials? Do you need, all sorts of things that you need to think about what your sales collateral is going to be. So how are you going to reach your your partner developers, the people that are actually developing and consuming your APIs and are looking at your APIs? You're going to have to communicate with them. You need to build and create a partner developer community. Remember that part of the digital business is creating that ecosystem and that community around your APIs, your digital business, right? You're going to need to, if people are actually using your APIs, you're going to need to be able to have a mechanism around that community to submit and track issues and enhancement requests, right? You need some mechanism to do that, and there's plenty of tools out there that can help you do that. So then I want to take another poll. For those of you that are have an API strategy, do you have a developer community or a developer portal, right? Do you have one out there? If you do, let us know. If you don't, let us know as well. That's very important. Besides having a developer portal to track and control issues, you need to create communication plans for when certain things arise. So, for example, when the developer comes in, they found a problem. Who's going to be the first one that tackles it? Is it going to be your API developer? Is it going to be your developer advocate? Or if it's a major problem, and it's a security problem, who all in your organization needs to know, and then who actually does the communication with the community at large, right? Is it the API developer themselves, or is it your developer advocate, right? So you need to think about what is your communication plan going to be, all right? If you're going out externally, you need to think about and understand the legal aspects of using your API. This is really important. Are you going to have indemnity clauses, which you probably are? What's the liability? What are your disclaimers? What are your relationships? What are your exclusions? What are the rules for using your API? So, for example, maybe you say, well, in order to display the content my API provides, you always need to display my company logo. You need to understand all those legal actions and terms and conditions for usage, okay, for how things can be used. The next thing that we're going to talk about is information security. I don't need to say much more on this with the current environment. You're going to have, your chief security officer involved. If you're, in finance and health and in some of these other heavy regulated industries where personal data privacy is important, you need to think about pretty much everything that I have on this little heat map type of thing here. You need to be able to understand what your security policies are. That being said, I'm going to ask another question. For your API securities, what do you plan to use, right? How do you plan on securing your APIs, right? Because you need to understand the full aspect of securing your APIs, from authentication and authorization. Are you going to rely on OAuth, OpenID Connect, Java Web Tokens, JSON Web Tokens, Basic Auth, SAML, Mutual SSL? How are you going to authenticate there? How are you going to provision your app keys and validation and licensing? What's your message security going to be? What's your threat protection going to be? What's your content filtering? If you need to filter things out for personalization information and PCI type information, what's your rate limiting? So there's all sorts of API security needs that you need to think about when you're exposing an API. And you're going to need to think about this no matter if you're exposing it externally or internally across different lines of business. Things are heavily regulated, all right? So I just rapidly went through several different things about just the basics that you need to have when you're starting an API strategy, right? And how detailed you want to go into each one of those, it really depends on what your business goals and objectives are, okay? Now, one of the things I get asked all the time is that, you know what, the technical aspects to doing digital transformation, they're fairly easy. I'm going to be pretty, laissez-faire about that. They're not easy, but we know what they are. They're technical aspects that we can overcome with a technical solution, right? The hardest thing about digital transformation is the cultural shift. And I get asked all the time, how do we make the cultural shift? Especially when you're in a huge organization, a huge enterprise. How do you do that, right? So here are my 5 points, and from looking and working with customers that are making the digital transformation and what I've seen that they've done. There's probably more fancy terminology used for each of these 5 points, but these are just, basic language. Here's what you need to do, okay? The message of digital transformation must come from above and must be repeatedly, consistently across all executives, okay? This message should be specific, right? You should keep it focused and should really define what is your business goal. Again, and it needs, the organizations that are most successful have not just one executive business sponsor. They have several executive business sponsors that understand that, this needs to be our company mission across different lines of business, okay? That's when you're really going to move, okay? but you need to have a message, and it needs to be repeated constantly, okay? Everyone in your organization or enterprise must be incentivized to make the progress towards becoming a digital business, okay? I've lived through this from a technology perspective. Being in a prior technology company, we were told to, we need to go move the business to a different area, but the problem is the area that we were moving the business towards did not align with our current incentives. And when people's paycheck, how they are ranked and judged and get their bonus, right, is based on goals of your traditional business, right, with traditional metrics and points, right. They're not going to move because they're going to keep marching towards what the business goals, what business commitment goals are, and not to the new incentives. So you need to make a strong divide and say, you know what, you are now going to be incented to do X, right? You cannot mix the two businesses if it's going to be a drastic change. It won't work. It will fail, all right? Rule number 3, everybody must be given the proper tools to make the progress, okay? If your developers aren't allowed to install or have access to the tools needed, well, you know what? You're not going to be leveraging the latest stuff that the market is demanding, right? Make available the tools, make available the educate, and it doesn't necessarily mean, just give them avenues to learn. Give them avenues to utilize these new tools, okay? So everybody, and this does, and I use technical as an example, but the business needs these tools as well. So make sure everybody is given the proper tools to align with your business goals to make progress. Make sure everyone is educated. Everyone must be educated on what the change really is, okay? The business folks need to be educated on what the new objective is and what that really means. The technical folks need to be educated on it. And it's not just a technical thing. I'm going to respond to that over and over again. This is not just a technical thing. Everybody needs to be educated. And that means you have to take the time to do it, right? You need to pull back on some of the commitments and allow them to move to new commitments that will further your business forward. Everybody must be able to express creativity without fear, right? If a business person has a technical idea, they should be able to express it. And without fear of being reprimanded or made fun of or whatever. So if you can create that type of environment, right, you're going to have a good way to move forward with your digital business. If you're lacking in any one of these 5 aspects, it's going to be a harder transition, a harder change. So some of the great companies that I've worked with that are making this change and being very, very successful, one of the things that they're leveraging are internal hackathons, right? It really generates great momentum to digital transformation, right? And I heard a great line that what internal hackathons allow you to do is diverge before you can converge. You can leverage the people inside your organization to find out what they're thinking, where do they think they're where it would help your customers. What are some ideas that they've been sitting on? And I believe me, the first time I held one of these internal hackathons, I was amazed. I went in with low expectations, and I was amazed at what came out. And there's a lot of creativity, especially in large enterprises. Hackathons are a great way to educate both business and technical employees and on what a digital business really means to the company. Pairing your technical folks with your business folks really allows to open up communication and give everybody kind of a cross-pollination of what is needed. It's a great neutral environment to learn new technologies and concepts, and it's a great way to motivate innovative thinking. Everyone can step outside their day jobs and potentially create new ways to do things and new ways to do your business. So if you have not held one yet, I would strongly suggest that you hold one. and see the creativity. I know a lot of times when we were talking about the API economy that we said, oh, you have to leverage the external application developers out there. They've got great things. Yes, you need to do that. But you know what? Look internally, too. There's a lot of creativity there that if you let the people step outside their day jobs, they can do that. Digital business is about networking at scale, establishing yourself as a platform. APIs are the basis underneath that. Creating an ecosystem, building a community. This is what will make you a digital business. So once you know Akana has a platform, this is why I'm speaking on it, for a digital business, and we help companies do exactly this. We provide a unified platform. A lot of from helping customers, everything from how to design and build their APIs and their services, to how to secure and protect their systems, how to simplify and speed up development, doing micro orchestrations, to help build that developer community and partner ecosystem, to being able to measure the impact of your programs. The one thing about the digital age and why I think creating that business plan is so important, the digital age is all about measurements, right? The data is there. You need to capitalize on it, and then you need to use it for your advantage. If you're not, you should be. And data comes from everywhere. And you're going to get a lot of data out of your APIs. So the Akana platform consists of 4 capabilities wrapped up. We've got Lifecycle Manager that provides that lifecycle management capability and DevOps automation throughout the entire lifecycle through the runtime. We've got our API Gateway that provides those gateway services for securing and authenticating and everything that you need around mediation and transformation and all that kind of great stuff, orchestration. We've got our Community Manager, which does, as it says, it helps you build out that community. The community can be inside and outside. Most companies will have several different developer communities that they're maintaining. And the Envision, which is the analytics. So these are the platform capabilities that the platform provides, and I just discussed a lot of those as I was going through those those previous charts. From the platform does everything from licenses, quota management, partner management. We've got a PCI compliance SaaS infrastructure for you. We house a lot of our banking and financial customers on there. We've got provisioning, monitoring, analytics, all the way. You can read this chart. I'm not going to read everything for you, from the developer portal to handling encryption and quality of service. Basically everything that I talked about in that previous, when we were talking about when you had to think about API security. We handle all those capabilities with the robust reporting. Our solution is available on-premise and in the cloud and in a hybrid model. It's the same solution deployed everywhere. It's a true multi-tenant solution. So you, as an organization, if you're a large enterprise and you want it on-premise, you can manage several different tenants easily from one infrastructure. You can leverage the cloud or have hybrid. Honestly, most customers do a hybrid deployment depending on the community that they are going after. With that, you know what? I forgot a couple of little questions here. So I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to ask, is your business making a transition to a digital business? So if you could put that up. And we'll let that polling, let me get this out, go, and let me bring up my here, and let's take some questions while we're waiting, while I'm getting the next questions. Okay.
You have a couple of questions in the Q&A box.
Okay. Can you, I can't get to...
So one question says, does this only apply to external APIs?
No. Having everything in my presentation applied to internal APIs. You should have you should treat your API as a product internally. It should have a business case. It should have a plan. You might not, it should have a business model, but it's probably not going to be, if you're going internally, you're probably not going to sit down and you might do chargebacks, right? This is, these are, you might have chargebacks for your APIs. That's what we were always trying to do in the SOA days. Remember when we were trying to have chargebacks for using our SOA services? So you might have that. You might have to devise a business model around how you're going to recoup the costs of the API. So yes, everything in here is applicable to internal, external, and to partners. It's just to what extent you're going to apply those. Okay, I have one more important question, a polling question I want to have asked out there, is have you ever held a hackathon? And you can see the questions there. All right.
So one question that came in is for me, which is, can we have the presentation slides? The answer is yes. They will be emailed out to you with a link to the recording of this webinar in probably a couple of days. It takes a few days to put the whole thing together. So other questions says, so is the summary of your definition of a platform when a company enables clients to consume their APIs and features and build their particular use case on the company's site?
I would take off a company site. I would say that as a platform, so that I think that is one definition of a platform, of a digital business, to establish yourself as a platform. You might be establishing yourself as a platform by externalizing your APIs and allowing people to provide value add. So in case of the farm equipment company, right, they have the data in the cloud, and partners can leverage that data and provide some value add, so to the farmer, right? And so in that instance, the partner is leveraging the farm equipment's data, providing a value add that the farm equipment doesn't have, and thereby providing value add to a mutual customer. They're both going after a mutual customer, and that's being a platform. In the case of, in the case of Uber, the platform really is the service itself, right? It's Uber does have API access, but it's the platform they created was a platform for drivers, right? Those that wanted to be able to be private drivers and to know where their customers and so forth are pick up on. But Uber itself leverages APIs to power its mobile app. But it's a digital business because it's established itself as a platform. It created an ecosystem, and it has a community, right? That grows at scale, right? It's networking at scale. Okay.
Another question is, how does the Akana platform, how is it different from MBAAS, Mobile Backed as a Service platform? It comes with certain functionality like push notification, data sync, etc. Why should we use Akana platform?
So the Akana platform is really an API platform. It provides that large security layer between you and that mobile app, that consuming mobile app on the phone, right? It provides basically it's that security layer. It provides the community management. It provides the orchestration. So, for example, if you need to combine several different services on the back end to make an API that can be consumed by your mobile app, it can easily do that with configuration, not coding, right? Because you need to. Mobile apps require. Let's say you have an API that you're using from on your website today that provides a lot of data that's not going to fit on a mobile phone, or that you don't want to stream over the over the wire. Our platform will allow you to easily transform that data and only send the proper data to that mobile phone, but still leveraging that same back-end service. So it allows you to abstract those back-end services with a very little configuration or coding approach.
All right, so final question says, we would like to hold hackathons. Any ideas on how to go about them?
Very good question. I actually wrote an article, a blog on the Akana blog site. There is, it's basically a playbook, what you need to do. So you can go there, use that as a guideline. Feel free to give me a call, and I'd love to help you hold one. So just give me a call. Go to the blog site.
One final question. What kind of support do you have for Python and Node.js? For Node.js, so if you're asking if we are a hosting platform for Node.js. Today, currently, we do not host Node.js on our platform. Our platform, you would host Node.js on, your favorite, if you on-premise somewhere, or in your favorite cloud. So today, our customers use what we do when they need to do development of the actual API. We've been using Cloud9, and once the bit of capability that you wanted to expose is exposed in Cloud9, you've developed in Cloud9. We typically, some customers put it in Amazon, some customers put it in Heroku, and our platform understands how to control, engage, and access each one of those points of interest. In fact, if you go to the blog site, there is a great article, a great blog that Ian Goldsmith wrote. That it's called. It breaks up your microservices, and there's an example. It breaks up your monolithic app into microservices, and it has a great example how you use Akana platform with Cloud9, Node.js application, or Lambda, and Amazon Web Services. So it's a great article that explains how our platform works with those technologies. But we don't actually, on our platform, we don't host it on our API management platform. Does that answer your question? Kind of roundabout answer.